Hello, fellow old dogs. I just wanted to mention our great sponsor for today's show, Equity and Help. Yeah, they've been on before, but we love them. One of the reasons why is I remember living in Haiti. One of the things we did was to help people find housing. And I love the idea of helping people in the U.S. get into a home who might not normally be able to do so. And you see an 8 to 12 return on investment, which doesn't hurt too much either. Well, check them out at equityandhelp.com. That's equityandhelp.com.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcast, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, on this show, we are always looking for different types of real estate investments, all different asset classes, just across the board. We've been in so many different places. But this is a first after some almost 600 shows here. I've never heard of this particular company, and I am going to be talking today with a gentleman named Peter Badger. Now, Peter has been a full-time investor in real estate and agriculture over the last 8 years and recently joined Farmfolio as Chief Strategy Officer. Peter brings a multitude of skills to Farmfolio after spending 18 years on Wall Street and a decade in Silicon Valley. He is data and process driven and drives strategy, sales, and distribution for Farmfolio's lots products. Well, Peter, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thanks, Bill. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on. I purposely did not try to describe your particular product or your particular service. I'm going to leave that up to you. But first, I'd love to get a little background. I noticed you have a bit of an accent here. Maybe you can give us a little bit of your background and where you came from and how you got involved in Farmfolio.
Yeah. So my background is pretty simple. British, went to college and was fortunate to land a job on Wall Street in New York City at the age of 23. And I spent 18 years in most of the financial centers around the world building technology for the major investment banks. So I got a real good insight, Bill, into financial systems and financial markets, which is what the main, public population invests in today. And so I was able to basically understand that fully. And then I went to Silicon Valley, started my own tech company. It was acquired in 2014, and since I made a bit of money, it wasn't a home run, it was a good single. I've been learning how to basically deploy that capital, and not only to keep it, but grow it. And that's where real estate met my wealth profile.
Well, interesting. Why real estate? I mean, you could have gone into so many different areas, the stock market, and what was the attraction there?
There was a bit of a push and a pull. So the push away from stock market, by the way, into real estate was because I lost a lot of my 401k and cash assets in 2001 and 2008 with the correction. So I knew there had to be a better journey. So the beauty of my situation was in 2014, when I sold the company, the money arrived in the bank account. I was living in California at the time. So, of course, I got my fair share of the equity upon sale. California state and federal taxes took 52%.
Ouch.
Which was a bit of a gut punch. Then I did what every other founder does and went out and bought a Tesla, just because you're supposed to. And then, so the real question was, okay, what do I do with the funds? Because I've been on this arduous 8-year startup journey. It was emotionally and physically exhausting. Let's make sure I can kind of grow that. And so I actually interviewed all of my founders in the Valley. And I said, listen, where do you put your money? And bar none, they all said to me, Peter, listen, everybody makes their fortunes in private or public company stock. Then they put it into real assets like real estate and farmland to retain and grow it. And that was what started the journey, frankly.
Interesting. And were you buying single family homes, or there's so many different asset classes?
I went on this crazy journey because unfortunately most of us start with people we meet first, don't we? So I just happened to meet a guy who owns some single family homes. And because I'm a bit of an A-type personality, I went and bought 21 of them.
Oh my.
In less than 14 months. So I went too far, frankly, because I didn't need to buy 21 single-family homes. I did 13 leveraged, the rest for cash. And then that was amazing because as an asset class, it's something you get regular monthly checks. But people started moving out after the first year. Tenants trashed the place, $3,000 repair bill, air conditioning unit got nicked. I went through the whole single-family kind of journey of owning Class C properties out of state.
The joy of landlording.
Exactly. And so I had a bunch of property managers. Some were good, some were bad. And so I basically used the single family path as a learning point and went off got a mobile home park. I then went to multifamily, bought down a couple of buildings myself, ended up buying syndications, did a bunch of short-term rentals by the beach in Mexico, bought a place in Disney in Florida, went overseas, Latin America, Central America, Europe, bought some farmland. And so I went through this crazy journey. And here's where I am today, Bill. This is the important moral to the story. There's only 2 asset classes that really outperformed and stayed consistent through the whole pandemic. And that is multifamily syndications and agriculture or farmland.
Well, agriculture and farmland is a topic we have not really discussed here. So I'm going to zero in on that. And what brought you into that? Were you going to go out there with a tractor and start to grow your own crops, or how did you get into agriculture?
Well, the same advice I got was like, I was with this guy in Silicon Valley, and what happens is when you sell your company, some really good people and some leeches come and approach you to try and quote unquote help you invest and grow your money. And I met some great people who were managing the wealth of some of the big tech people. One guy was very legit. Said to me, listen, he says, Peter, high net worth individuals, the really rich ones, they have between 14 and 22% of their personal wealth in agriculture or forestry assets. And I said, why? And they said, because it's intergenerational wealth building. And the way to think about this is that with real estate, yeah, it's great. We can buy real estate, single family, multifamily, whatever the flavor of real estate asset is. But the difference between that asset and farmland is that when somebody moves out of a house, you lose the rent for a month. If it's multifamily, you spread that risk. Or if you have air conditioning breakdown needs replacing, or your roof needs replacing every 15, 20 years. On the other side of this, you basically plant a tree, let's say a coconut tree. You wait for the produce of coconuts in 5 years' time, and then it actually produces coconuts between 60 and 80 years in a row. And there's no tenants moving out. There's no, air conditioning breaking. There's no roof replacement. You have to farm it. Obviously, there's farming risks. But the point was that when you have that portion of your asset allocation in farmland, not only does it basically give you cash flow for your life, but it passes to your kids or your family and gives intergenerational wealth. And that's why they do it.
Interesting. And so you're basically leasing out the land, and then you're relying on someone else that knows what they're doing to produce a crop. Now, do you get a percentage of the crop, or is it sort of separate, where you lease the land and they just get a check every month for that lease, or is it always a profit sharing type venture?
Well, so let me kind of give a bit of the journey on the farmland, because it's important. We're all a history of our mistakes and successes, aren't we? Our character. And so I made some really bad agricultural investments early on in 2014, 2015. I lost money because I didn't really understand what I was investing in. And I'm always about finding great mentors. I'm always about finding courses, reading books, listening to podcasts like yours, Bill, to learn. And there really wasn't much out there in the farming space. So I had to learn from scratch. I lost a bunch of money in the early days, trusted some people I should not have trusted in hindsight. But you don't know what you don't know. And then I met a company called Farmfolio. I started investing in their agriculture syndications. And so just like a multifamily syndicate, they buy farms. In this case, like they planted 32,000 coconut trees, and they managed all of the farming for us. It was a passive investment. And over the 5 years, I started seeing it work. And I actually ended up joining the company this year because I finally, with them, designed a farmland ownership product, which gives us control and consistent cash flow. And so when you think about a syndication, you're relying upon an operator, which is fine because they should be experts in their field, but they also control how long you receive the income from that project and how much, because they're making decisions.
Right.
And so what we did with Farmfolio in the past couple of years is we send the fruit to either Philadelphia on the east coast of the US or Rotterdam in Netherlands for European distribution. We then truck it and to distribution centers and then sell the fruit. And so right now, Walmart, Costco, Trader Joe's, Albertsons, Publix, the major retailers are buying our fruit today. And what we then did was said, okay, right now, all these farmers delivering fruit to our pack house, we can tell, I'm very data and process driven. I can tell which farms are the best, which ones have the best fruit. Because when you bring fruit into a pack house, a certain percentage is great for export and a certain percentage of fruit isn't good enough for export. And so we knew the percentages of all these farms of what the quality of fruit was. We've now gone back. We have purchased some of those farms. We've broken them into individual parcels. And so you now can buy a parcel of land, but instead of just holding a single family rental that gives you your rental income minus expenses, you actually have a parcel of land with 220 mature Tahiti lime trees, with those limes being sold in Walmart, Costco, Trader Joe's, etc. in the US. And that's how we guarantee the cash flow within a certain range year after year, as long as you own that titled farmland.
Fascinating. Wow. I mean, there's so much to this. There's, and I didn't realize you were so involved in the processes as well. Digging into the various, most successful farms and overseeing. And I don't know, I don't know if you're managing the actual farm operation or you overseeing people that do that. And if so, how do you do that? I mean, when you talk about that operator, kind of calls the shots, but you became much more involved in that process, which is fascinating because, did you have the agricultural background, or did you bring in people that did have that background?
Yeah, so we have multi-generational farming teams where the farms exist. It is a very specialized discipline. And again, I'm data-driven. So when we saw all these farms, all the fruit was being delivered, there was a common denominator across all the best farms we were receiving fruit from. And I would say that around 60% of those farms had a third-party farm manager. It was a guy called Jorge Campesano, and he was a multi-generational farmer. And he was the third-party farm manager across all those farms delivering the best fruit. And so in the same way that you have kind of like, we've all had property managers. Some are, managing it on Post-it notes. Some have systems and process in place. Jorge Campesano has an amazing agricultural protocol he goes through. And so he has a team that goes from farm to farm, sweeps through, applies all the phytosanitary process, trims the trees back, makes sure there's no brush underneath, does the right harvest protocol, because you need to know when to pick the fruit. And so when you kind of have a, local farming mentality, you just wait until the fruit grows big as possible. But actually, honestly, US consumers don't want massive fruit. They want limes all the same size in the supermarket, because Walmart doesn't want you in the supermarket looking for the biggest limes in a box of limes that they're all different sizes. So they need to be at a certain size, a certain rich emerald green, no spotting, no shading from where there's leaves above stopping the sunlight coming in. And so they have this amazing protocol for harvesting, even where they trim the trees back in the middle to let the sunlight come through. All the harvest becomes emerald green, even on the bottom branches. Then they pick on day 85 after flowering, which brings them to this kind of 36 to 44 milliliter diameter lime specification, which supermarkets love and which we as consumers love. And so there's, long story. You need to find this farming team who know what they're doing. In the same way you look for a property manager who knows what they're doing. We were fortunate. We were data-driven. We correlated the best farming team with the best fruit from our packhouse data. And we now have Jorge and his team managing all of our farms.
Are you actively acquiring more farms on an ongoing basis?
Yes, we are. And so we had a request last month. Walmart requested for a tripling of our production. And so we're constantly on the lookout, expanding our operations. And the goal basically is to keep offering out what we call these farm lots or land ownership titles, because you're taking title to the land, just happens to contain trees versus a real estate asset. And our goal basically is to bring this product to the masses. Because the other key to this is that because it's a land transaction, it's available to non-accredited investors. I was tired of all my family members not being able to get into these syndications because they weren't accredited. There wasn't this fake government, restriction, them deciding for us whether we have the knowledge or capability to basically invest or own farmland. That's taken away because you're buying a plot of land just like you buy a real estate plot of land for a house.
But you're really buying into a business, right? I mean, there's a lot more to it than just buying raw land.
That's right. But I think the point of the reason this isn't an SEC issue is because you're buying title to the land.
Right.
And that's the difference. When you collectively group together and buy a syndication, then it's an SEC accredited product. There's obviously B versus C, but it basically cuts out the average person from owning farmland. And that's what we're trying to solve. We're trying to democratize farmland ownership so anybody can have a portion of their assets in farmland and receive income for themselves and pass on to future generations.
And you refer to them as lots, but it's really an acronym, isn't it, for something?
That's right, yeah. Land ownership title.
Okay.
It's our marketing term. It's really a parcel of land.
It is a parcel. So when somebody invests, do you have multiple people investing in one parcel, or is it one parcel per person? How does that work?
Yeah, so the other overlay we did to this was you can't farm a parcel. you have to farm the entire farm. So to give an example, we have a farm right now, La Frontera, which is being offered. There are 103 parcels. We broke it into 103 parcels. And so you can own one or multiple titles. I've got people who have bought 10. They were backing into a passive income number. People who sometimes buy one. It depends on what they're looking to do. And what we do is we actually farm the farm in its entirety, which is necessary from an operational efficiency standpoint. Because remember, all the fruit was being delivered from that same farm to our pack house before. We've just gone and bought it now and broke it into individual lots. And we're then giving people the opportunity to own those. But you need that efficiency and the scale. And so what we do is we farm the farm as it's meant to be in the 103rd its entirety, and then we actually give people 103rd of the income from the fruit minus 103rd of the expenses for the overall farm. And that way you're kind of collectively sharing in the proceeds or production of that farm, but you own title to your land to keep control, the best of both worlds.
And I don't know if I heard you correctly there. You said 103rd? No, or 103rd. Can you clarify that?
Yeah. So because this particular farm was broken into 103 parcels.
Oh, okay.
Every title holder of one of those 103 gets 103rd of the income minus the expenses.
Got it. Okay. Now you use limes as an example, but there are multiple products that you're involved with, right? I mean, I think I looked at your website. I mean, there's at least it mentioned teak, it mentioned other things. How do you select what product is to invest in?
Our goal is to basically broaden the product set, because obviously we've done all the hard work of opening up those fruit sales and distribution supply chains channels to the big retailers. So now we've got limes, we'll add coconut, then avocado. I mean, it's much easier to add an additional fruit to existing shipping and logistic channels, isn't it? So from our perspective, not only are we going to expand the product set, but we then have the ability for people to then own different products and diversify across different farmland assets. And, we choose the products that have an incredible track record and continue to grow. So limes are, forever needed in fruit preparation, cooking, even in your Corona in the summer months. And coconuts, incredibly versatile. Every part of the coconut can be used, from, coconut water, which has become so popular now. The husks can be used for furniture. All the beauty industry has coconuts. I mean, it's just endless, the amount of use of a coconut today. Avocado, Hass avocados in particular, you cannot get enough Hass avocados to supply the demand. And so we're looking for high demand, robust, products that are going to survive for decades into the future. And that's how we pick our crop each time.
And I imagine, depending on the product or the crop, you must have, just a varying degree of returns, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so when you look at the different crop types, so for instance, let's take just one angle. Coconut tree, you'll plant today, it'll be 60 to 80 years it'll grow a crop. But lime trees have a 20 to 24 year mortality. And so when you think about that from a investment longevity standpoint, coconut is potentially better. But then what you do with the lime farmers, at the end of the 20 years of the full crop, they'll start to decline in production. And over 4 years, you start to replace 25% of the trees. They're still producing some limes to cover that replanting. Then you grow them back up again, another 20-year cycle. So there's different, let's call it term of these ownership opportunities. And to your point, there is an arbitrage of price for the crop against the expense of farming. And so coconuts will be different from lime, from avocado, from teak in that case.
What are the more lucrative products that you guys carry?
Well, they're all lucrative, and here's the key to this thing. Most of our farms, in fact, all of our farms at the moment are overseas. They're non-US. And the reason for this is because you can't make money on US farmland today. The land is too expensive. The labor is too expensive. And so what we've managed to do is to go to strong agricultural countries in the right climate that have a history of amazing multi-generational farming capability. We then take that produce, which has traditionally been sold locally, we wash, pack, sort, transport across to the US, Canada, and Europe, and we charge high dollar for that fruit.
Amazing. And are you actually dealing with the whole import of these products? You're dealing with the U.S. and Canada. Is that difficult? Are there tariffs or the things that limit you to a certain degree?
It's a skill, but it's also a service, and so we have hired people who know this throughout all parts of the supply chain. And in reality, once you get it down pat and you've got the systems in place, the operational process in place, it's pretty standard nowadays. So you know when the fruit's coming from the farms, you know what nights it'll be packed, you know how many containers you'll have full of fruit based upon projections for the farm export quality fruit. And then we'll just line up the correct, ocean liners to come across and deliver to the Philadelphia port, where it comes through clearance over 24, 48 hours, and then straight into distribution centers for sending out to Walmart, Trader Joe's, etc.
Financial freedom doesn't have to be a pipe dream. With investments in real estate, they may be hit or miss, all depending on how the market's looking for the coming years. Now, what if there was a method that included both stability and benefits to hardworking families in need without sacrificing your return? Equity and Help have cracked the code with a proven method that offers steady cash flow while making a difference. Equity and Help locates the properties, fixes the properties up, finds the perfect families to live there, all to ensure that you get the best return while families enjoy their happy new home. That is achieving financial freedom while making a difference. For more information, call your Philanthro Investor consultant from Equity and Help at 844-552-8828 or visit equityandhelp.com/podcast to become a Philanthro Investor. That's equityandhelp.com/podcast. Where would you say the majority of your farms are, if you were to look at it geographically?
Well, we've had the most consistent success in Colombia in South America. And the reason for that is because it is an amazing agricultural country. It's got the right climate, the right weather patterns, the right mix of sunshine to make the limes green, for instance, but then the rainfall to keep the crops healthy. It has different altitudes, so you can produce fruit 12 months a year in different regions of Colombia. And of course, the fruit retailers want the fruit 12 months a year. That's the demand. It's not seasonal like Mexico or Brazil, where they have a massive output in the summer and then it dies off during the winter months. Colombia also has amazing foreign ownership property rights. So you have every right to own land or real estate in Colombia, like a local Colombian. There is a strong legal system where you can enforce those rights, and they have a great currency. So the exchange rate risk is less than, say, some other countries in that region. So you have to look at a bunch of factors to work out which is the best country based upon those analysis points that make sense. And that's where we've ended up. Colombia is a core market for us.
Interesting. And who actually holds the deed to the property?
So you have two choices, actually. So some people want it really passive. And so what we do is we will custody the title under Farmfolio for those who want truly passive. But for those who say, you know what, I want to transfer that title into my name or an entity or a trust, then we actually help you go through the paperwork. You apostille some documents, and you can retitle that land in your name. Now, the reason that most people leave it with Farmfolio is because we handle working with the local municipality where that title is recorded. And so obviously if there's land taxes every year, we'll take care of it. If there's communications that come through in Spanish, by the way, our team takes care of that and manages those title ownership requests on your behalf. So you have a choice. Leave it with Farmfolio on a custody basis, or take it in your own name and manage that accordingly.
And how do people invest? And what sort of a minimum investment? Is there a term? What are the options there?
So we owe from a range of around $30,000 up to $65,000, depending on the age of the trees and therefore the amount of produce being produced. And obviously the more expensive the lot, the more cash flow you're getting. It's correlated. And you can purchase one or multiple lots, and you can basically own that for 3, 5, 10, 20 years, however long you want. You can keep it forever if you wish. Because the other truth to this is that we've now started to see a secondary market forming. Because imagine, Bill, that you have a farm lot with a 3-year track record of producing fruit and giving a certain percent of cash flow every year. There is always a new investor looking to own that lot with a track record. And so what we do is we sell your lot to secondary investors alongside our primary offerings. And we just take a 3% real estate commission for that. And the goal really is to give people the ability to control their title and therefore control their income for as long as they want, but then also give them the ability to sell that on to somebody else when they need the cash to exit the ownership.
And what kind of returns should people expect on this type of investment?
So your rate of return on a yearly basis for 10 to 20 years can be between 12 and 20%.
Wow.
And the key to this, obviously, is let's kind of talk about some other asset classes to compare. So stock market, it's been going great. Fed's been supporting it, but obviously there'll be a cyclical downturn at some point. So I always keep some of my wealth in the stock market for that reason. It's an asset allocation issue for me. I keep between 10 and 30%. Then I actually have a core of my wealth in a lot of them value add projects. And I can get between, 8% cash on cash return from mature project to, 16 to 22%, depending on the value add project in some cases that appreciate as you rehab those buildings and raise the rents. And so for farmland, our goal is to put you between 12 and 20% over the years. And so I say to people, listen, you've got to diversify. By the way, diversifying the Wall Street way, which is putting all your assets in public mutual funds or ETFs, small cap, large cap, a bit of international diversification, that is not diversification, because all global markets are correlated today. It goes up and it goes down, as we now know, in unison, with some minor differences by sector or country. So I say to people, listen, break it into 3, keep it simple, bid in the stock market, and farmland is a steady eddy real asset. Trees grow limes through the year. We sell the harvest, you get the cash back. It is irrelevant of what happens in stock market, public markets, and or real estate cycles. It's that simple.
How are the returns paid? Is it a monthly, quarterly, annual?
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense in the terms of this. Normally, let's take an example of a lime tree. It has a minor and major harvest through the year. It depends on the region the farm is located in. And so what we do is we collate the harvest returns for 6 months, pay the expenses for those 6 months, and deliver you a check every 6 months in January and July. And that seems to be the best way to basically take advantage of those major and minor harvests throughout the year to give you that steady return.
Gotcha. This is just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. You said you kind of started off on your own, investing in farms and what have you. Share a little bit about some of the mistakes that you made early on and what you learned from that.
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, I could spend 3 hours on this. But simply put, imagine some guy tells me that high net worth people buy farmland for those reasons. Okay, great. I go out networking. I'm doing a lot of travel around Central Latin America, you name it, and you always meet mostly Americans, I'll admit, who are like, yeah, I've just bought this cheap land in Belize or Panama, and I'm going to plant this crop, and I'm going to sell all this produce to, major retailers. And what I call it hope ag investing, because you're hoping not only do they know how to plant and farm and get those trees to the 3 to 5 to 7 year point with great fruit, which is difficult in itself, but you're also hoping that they even understand supply chain logistics and know how to sell the fruit to the regular players in the fruit supply chain. And most people don't. You either get very good people who can farm, who can't sell, or you get people who can sell fruit but can't farm. And so I unfortunately met a couple of teams. I trusted the person who introduced me to them, and they didn't know how to either farm or sell. And so I probably have had $250,000 in mistakes getting to this level of understanding of this entire product on my journey. And so I think for me, I joined Farmfolio because I consistently invested with them for the first 5 years, and they outperformed. They delivered what they said they would. And my personal goal is I want to democratize access to this product for everybody. And so for me, I wanted to jump in with Farmfolio and help them broaden this product and scale it so that people like you and me can have a portion of our portfolio become a Farmfolio.
Interesting. And is it a platform that people can actually invest online?
Not right now. I mean, so you can go online to our website and find the farms, bring down the brochures, understand the team, farm management team, and all the aspects of the ownership opportunity. Our goal over the next couple of years to start to automate the secondary market, and our goal would be once there are enough Farmfolio lot owners out there, we'll let you register our website and then list your existing lots for sale and or buy new ones. And the goal would be to actually create more of a farm ownership platform for purchase in the future years, because I think that's where this is heading. Yeah,
that's what it sounds like. It definitely does. And you talked about your mistakes. What would you say is a sort of a big success? Maybe you can share a story of doing it right.
You have to start with the end in mind. Anybody can claim through a marketing brochure that they intend to do something like buy some land, grow some trees, and sell it. But ultimately, you've got to still go down that detailed due diligence of actually working out whether they have a cat and hell's chance of selling it. And so start with the end in mind. Okay, what's the produce? Who are their relationships with? Who are they going to sell that fruit to? Because without that income at the end of that cycle, there is no farmland opportunity. And I think that was my mistake, was I assumed that if I met some good people who seemed, let's say, honest, were referred by friends as being high integrity, it doesn't matter that they have this dream that they can succeed. It matters whether they've spent the past 10, 20 years in agriculture, in fruit sales, have the relationships with Walmart and Costco and the big retailers. You've got to look for those aspects. So to me, it's all that due diligence. And Farmfolio has that. I'll say I lucked out when I started 5 years ago with them. They've consistently produced and they've been growing. And you've got to look for that same track record and same knowledge and same multidisciplinary team. You've got to find a team that has farming capability and sales and distribution capability in the fruit business.
Now, what's interesting is, you're not only an employee of the company, but you're an investor as well. And what products have really come through for you, and or crops? I don't know what you call it. Areas where you want to get more of those, whatever it is.
Yeah, so the three areas for me were limes, coconuts, and teak. And so you understand the limes and coconut piece, but like let's take teak. I mean, teak is an incredible hardwood. Yeah. In demand is plantation teak. I know there's some listeners, oh, the rainforest. Well, listen, we were fortunate that in Colombia, there's a lot of cattle farmers. It's a big cattle farming country. And 18 years ago, the Colombian government said to the local cattle farmers, listen, if you plant teak to avoid soil erosion around your cattle farms, we'll give you a tax subsidy. And so what happened was, 2000, 2002, 2004, an incredible amount, tens of thousands of hectares of plantation teak was planted. And now it's sat there 16, 18, 20 years old, and it's ripe for the harvest. Cattle farmers don't know how to do it. So what we did was we ended up building a sawmill, and we now process all of the hardwood from these cattle farmers, we give them cash, so they have additional revenue stream, income stream for themselves and their families. And then we actually build teak deck tiles, and we sell them to a Florida distributor so that people in the States can actually, have deck tiles under their showers or, the back of their yard or whatever they want to do with it. So, I mean, the key is basically knowing where the product is, what it can be done, the use of the product, and then finding the right retailer to sell that for income for the teak lot owners.
So you're saying teak is your big performer at this point?
It's across the board. Teak, coconut, and lime.
Got it. Awesome. Well, our audience are folks that are 50 years of age and older. Some are approaching retirement, some are already in retirement, and they're looking at ways to be able to invest or generate cash flow, and maybe even, to create a legacy that they can hand down to their kids. What advice would you have for those folks that are looking at this area, and what would be the appeal for that group that, again, is investing later in life here? Maybe they have a nest egg. Maybe they want to look at ways to generate additional cash flow. How would Farmfolio work with that need?
So on a personal level, I always tell people to decide on the strategy around your asset allocation. And so obviously having a diversified portfolio means having the public market stuff, which they're all familiar with, and take advantage of the market cycles as and when they happen. But more importantly, as you get older, move your wealth into real assets. And those real assets are a combination of farmland and regular real estate. And so for me, Farmfolio is trying to offer up to, people in their, let's say, aging years, the ability to get in and move a portion of your wealth into farmland such that you can have consistent, steady cash flow for the next 20, 30 years. And then it will pass down to your family, and they can decide two things: either sell those lots onto somebody else because they're not interested, or receive that cash flow themselves and continue the cycle. So I think for me, it's all about moving your money into real sustaining assets like farmland that are, not correlating with where your assets have traditionally been in the public markets.
Right. Well, looking ahead, what excites you about Farmfolio and maybe its projects or maybe goals that the company is setting? What sort of excites you about the future of the company?
I think what excites me about the future of the company is not only it's an amazing team and we're having incredible growth, but it's based upon the underpinnings of having survived the pandemic and actually. It's been going gangbusters throughout the pandemic. Because I don't know about you, Bill, but I've got assets across the board. My short-term rental in Florida was empty for 9 months. I mean, who knew that Disney would shut down? Multifamily, I've had great success, but I've got friends in the student housing business who were suffering 40% occupancy.
Wow.
Short-term rentals in certain locations in the cities. With this whole strategy around, let's get a short-term rental and put it near, in a big city for people who are coming out on business trips. Well, that all died overnight. So I think for me, kind of like what excites me is that my multifamily and my farmland excelled during a pandemic. And this really was a shock that none of us expected. And so the fact that it's been forming before the pandemic and throughout the pandemic, I feel pretty certain at this point that those two asset classes of multifamily real estate and farmland are going to sustain me, my family, and more importantly, all of the people buying farmfolio lots for decades to come.
And I think those are, I mean, that's key to me. I mean, at least in terms of multifamily or, just residential real estate that, people always are going to need a roof over their head, and they're also going to need to eat. And so those two areas cover the basics of our survival. So I think it's that's smart. That's definitely a smart mix.
Yeah, so we kind of talk it through. We claim it's our Maslow's Hierarchy investing strategy. Because when you look at the Maslow's Hierarchy of needs, food and shelter are at the bottom. They're a necessity. Food, shelter, security, and that's why I think these have outperformed.
I always thought Wi-Fi was at the bottom, but just kidding. Oh wow! Well, this has been great. There's some good information here. We have a segment now we call Wrap It Up, where I just ask you a series of quick questions about resources that you have come in contact with that maybe you can share with our audience. So if you are ready, we can go ahead and do our Wrap It Up.
Yep, please go ahead.
All right. Favorite real estate book?
I do a lot of capital raising, and so I know that you've got some people out there learning to invest in real estate, but I know there's also probably some people who are looking to raise capital. And so the best book I've seen on this topic is called Raising Capital for Real Estate, and it's by Hunter Thompson.
Yeah, Hunter's.
And the reason I mention this, is because if you are on the fundraising side or looking to create real estate projects, when you raise the right capital with the right investors behind you, anything is possible. The deals flow towards that capital. So learn it well, and one of those books, Raising Capital Real Estate, is a key one to help you do that.
Great book, yeah. How about just a general business book?
I have a old school. It's called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. And that kind of talks to you how do you build a business, because right now I'm in the business building mode. I'm an entrepreneur. Most people in real estate are building businesses, just happens to be underpinned by real estate. So if you want to understand what it takes to build the ultimate sales machine, get that book by Chet Holmes, because he'll give you some practices that will help your life become a lot easier.
Great tip. How about a website that you use on a regular basis that for your investing and just your overall business needs?
That's an easy one on the real estate front. I think for me, Neighborhood Scout has saved my life. So one of the things I tell people is that Neighborhood Scout basically is a website where you can plug in an address in the US. It'll tell you the exact demographics for that zip code and that block of where that real estate asset is located. And it'll tell you how many people are homeowners. It'll tell you the demographics, college education or not. It'll tell you the crime rates. It'll give you the walk score to major amenities like grocery stores or restaurants and bars. It'll tell you where the freeways are. And what cracks me up is that many people will happily throw in $10, $20, $30, $40,000 on a single family home, and they won't spend $30 on a detailed report telling them whether the location that is in is a high growth, low crime area. So please, if you invest in real estate, no matter the asset, use Neighborhood Scout and make sure you're buying the right location.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. It's a great resource. How about a favorite app? I guess you could say Neighborhood Scout's kind of also an app, but do you have a favorite app that you use?
I think, well, at the moment I'm regular. We are full-time RVers, and we are
That's right.
on the road full time. So I have about 30 apps on my phone, and RV Life is my current go-to because it allows you to know where the parks are, what the journey is, that it's RV safe, so you aren't knocking the top of your RV off on a low bridge, that kind of stuff. So yeah, RV Life is where it's at for me right now.
That's great. We used to have Good Sam Club. Of course, we just had a little book, that we used.
Exactly. It's a bit more advanced right now.
And how about a favorite quote?
My go-to in all aspects of business, including real estate and farmland, is trust but verify. This is actually it was mentioned by Ronald Reagan when he was doing the deal with Mikhail Gorbachev in the old days, and he basically said, you got to trust but verify. And so that's what I do with my multifamily operators, with my farming partners, with everybody I work in business. I mean, yes, read the marketing brochure, trust it, trust what they tell you, but then go and verify it with real data, real success, real track record, and real underlying referencing to support what they're telling you.
That's great. Great one. And final one here. If you lost absolutely everything, all of your assets, and you had to start all over, knowing what you already know, and you only had $1,000, what would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
I was thinking about this, and where I ended up was I would throw a cocktail party for my richest friends. And I would get them in a room, buy them drinks, and I'd tell them, how can I serve your wealth building needs?
Oh, very good.
Listen to the market. And they'll tell you,
I love it. That's great. Great idea. All right. Wow. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of folks here that are already stirred their interest in, Farmfolio and what you're doing. What's sort of the best way for folks to reach you or find out about your company?
Yeah, so you can reach Farmfolio at farmfolio.net. That's farm, FOLIO.net. And my email address is peter@farmfolio.net. So please send me an email. If I can help you with agriculture, if I can help you with my risk analysis matrix that I give people to help them understand how to invest in agriculture, I'm happy to help people. I want people to not make the same mistakes I made. I'm all about paying it forward. So if I can, give somebody a leg up in education around farm investing, I'm happy to help.
Great. Well, Peter, this has been fantastic. Great information and definitely a space that we have not covered. And so I'm thrilled just to have the information. And I do recommend people to check out your website. A lot of great information there. And you do talk, more into some of the countries you're involved in and some of the various crops and so forth. So it's definitely a good read. But before we go, we do have a tradition here. And I know you kind of talked to me about it before, so I hope you're prepared to give us your best closing howl.
Yep, and here is the howl. That is my partner in life, Kiki.
All right, you pulled an ace on us here.
I did. You got to put in the right people with the right job at the right time. That's how you're successful in business and real estate and farmland.
Oh, well, tell Kiki she did a great job here. Awesome. Wow. Well, we thank you very much for coming on and just sharing some great information.
No, it's a pleasure, Bill, and thank you for serving your listeners the way you do. I've learned a lot through listening to your podcast, and I appreciate you helping me in life and for everybody else out there. So thank you for your time.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. And I just want to thank all those out there, too, our old dog listeners that are joining us today. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Now, keep in mind, everything that Peter talked about here, and there's links and there's all kinds of stuff that the great information is going to be outlined in detail in our show notes at the olddogsreinetwork.com/blog, and you'll look up the episodes with Peter Badger. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.